open your retirement account. If anything in it tracks the S&P 500, you own a piece of a company called Palantir. In November 2025, one share of it traded at $207, roughly 10 times its price 2 years earlier. Ask an average shareholder what the company actually makes, and you will get silence. Here is the uncomfortable part. That price was not set in Silicon Valley. It was set on the Russian-Ukrainian front, and your portfolio has been quietly keeping score. By the end of this video, you will read 3 things as one story: a stock chart, a Pentagon contract, and a warship burning on a lake deep inside Russia. Exhibit 1. October 2025. Lake Onega in Karelia, Russia's far northwest, 1,000 kilometers from Ukraine. The lake is bigger than Cyprus. On it, a moving target. The Grad, one of Russia's newest Buyan M missile corvettes, a carrier of Caliber cruise missiles. Ukrainian special operations drones found it, hid it, and filmed the crew jumping overboard. Kyiv sat on that footage for months and released it in May 2026. Quick check before we go deeper. Could you have named the company inside that kill chain before today? Yes or no, in the comments. Now the part the spectacle hides. Run that strike backwards from the explosion. Hours before impact, slow drones were already deep inside Russian airspace, on a course plotted around every radar that could see them. Which means the launch crew had solved an equation with one unknown before takeoff, the future coordinate of a ship that had not arrived yet. No amount of courage produces that number. It comes out of data, satellite passes, radar gaps, route histories, fused into a single answer. The strike is the headline. The targeting is the story. This is Russia's invasion coming home along a supply chain of information, and that supply chain has owners. Luck doesn't fly 6 hours to meet a moving ship. So whose software sits inside that chain? Exhibit 2, May 2026. CNN gets cameras inside the Ukrainian intelligence unit that plans deep strikes into Russia. On the planning screens, an American commercial platform called Prisma, built by Palantir, panels labeled Strike History. Threat lists naming Russian air defense systems, Tor, Pantsir, Buk, each one tagged live or dark. A map that proposes corridors through the gaps. It looks like science fiction, and that look is doing a lot of work. So let's name the machine precisely. Despite the Tolkien name, Palantir is not a magic seeing stone. It is a stack of tools: Maven Smart System for targeting, Gotham for intelligence, Foundry for logistics, AIP for plugging artificial intelligence into closed military data, Meta Constellation for tasking satellites. Strip the branding and the job description is plain: collect everything, fuse it, and hand a human a shorter list of decisions. It's not a weapon, it's plumbing. And here is what the cameras caught without meaning to. The operators treated the cinematic dashboard as the least important screen in the room. The real work ran on uglier maps, and most of Ukraine's daily war runs on Delta, Ukraine's own battle management system, built at home. I went through that CNN footage frame by frame twice. On the second pass, it finally registered. The beautiful interface faces the visitors, and the working screens face the war. Ukrainian officers will tell you the rest themselves. The recognition models still cry wolf, so operators verify every flagged target by eye before anything flies. The logistics modules starve, because in a real war, ammunition counts live in field notebooks and chat threads, not in databases. One officer put it plainly: we still have not solved data collection, and without collection, there is nothing to compute. Alex Karp, Palantir's chief executive, has claimed his software handles most of the targeting in Ukraine. Treat that the way you would treat any sales pitch from a man with a product. The honest version is smaller and more interesting. The myth is an eye that wins wars. The reality is a plumber that makes one part of the war faster, inside a system still held together by people. The dashboard is for visitors. So if no single tool is magic, why is every defense company on earth fighting for a seat in this exact war? Exhibit 3, and this is the part I would ask you to remember. This war crossed a threshold, a technological singularity. The numbers are brutally simple. An attacking drone costs between $20,000 and $50,000. The interceptor missile that stops it costs $1 to $2 million. A cheap FPV drone kills a $10 million tank. Attack became radically cheaper than defense. And the moment that happened, every security architecture on the planet cracked. Not just Ukraine's. Civil aviation, sea lanes, power grids, capitals, suddenly cheap to threaten, ruinously expensive to protect. Western strategy was built on air superiority and precision weapons priced like jewelry. That doctrine died in Ukraine. The new one has not been born yet. And the cycle that should produce it swings on a 1-month pendulum. A new drone frequency appears, and within 2 or 3 weeks electronic warfare adapts and jams it. Old answers expire in months. Here is the frame for all of it. Hold on to this. War data is the new oil. Every strike video, every jamming frequency, every target recognition algorithm comes out of this ground crude, raw, dirty, and irreplaceable. You cannot drill it in a simulator, and you cannot buy it anywhere else. Ukraine is the largest deposit of this resource on Earth, and the only one producing. That is why Palantir is there. That is why Rheinmetall and Shield AI are there. Not because anyone wants the war to continue, and let's be precise here, because this is where propaganda lives. Nobody needs a conspiracy. It is structure, until defense becomes cheaper than attack, until an intercept costs $5 of laser instead of $2 million of missile. Nobody's security holds, and every player's incentives point the same way. So vote, what flips the equation first? 1. Lasers. 2. Autonomous swarms. 3. Nothing before 2030. Drop the number in the comments. Broken architecture gets repaired only inside a war. Which raises the ledger's next question. What has this laboratory already paid out? Exhibit 4, follow the products home. Meet the Hornet. A one-way strike drone from Perennial Autonomy. An American company backed by Eric Schmidt, the former chief executive of Google. Its terminal guidance is artificial intelligence. In the final kilometers, it recognizes a truck on its own, through jamming, no operator required. It was built around Ukrainian combat experience. This battlefield is its birthplace and its proving ground. In May 2026 alone, Hornets destroyed more than 125 Russian supply trucks up to 100 kilometers behind the front line. Russian military bloggers spent that month describing their own logistics coming apart underneath it. That same month, the Pentagon handed Perennial Autonomy a contract worth up to $500 million. Now widen the lens. The US Army runs integration events, hackathons in their own vocabulary, where Palantir and Perennial Autonomy sit at one table with Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and RTX, wiring their systems together. Maven Smart System, the Palantir targeting tool, grew from a $480 million contract into a program of record worth $1.3 billion. And one biography ties the whole arc together. In June 2022, Ukraine's young digital minister, Mikhailo Fedorov, helped walk Alex Karp into wartime Kyiv, the first chief executive of a major Western company to come. In January 2026, that same man became Ukraine's Minister of Defense. The man who invited the software now runs the war. I have been tracking Palantir's contract filing since 2023, the way other people track the front line. The pattern is hard to unsee. The front moves by meters, and the contracts move by billions. Now read the stock chart with all of this in mind. In 2023, Karp told the world his AI handled targeting in Ukraine, and the share price barely moved off $20. Then January 2024, a strategic agreement with Israel's Ministry of Defense. Then the Pentagon scaled Maven. By November 2025, the stock touched 207. The market didn't price the war story. It priced the homework, graded in Ukraine, sold back to the Pentagon. Receipts in hand, look at the door of the laboratory. There is a line forming outside. Exhibit 5, the waiting list. In mid-2025, the commanding general of the US Army in Europe, Christopher Donahue, told an industry audience what the new standard is. The first question I ask developers of any new weapon: have you asked the Ukrainians to test this yet? If the answer is no, I say, why? Because in combat, he added, Everything changes every 60 or 90 days. Sit with that for a second. A 4-star American general describing a foreign battlefield as the certification authority for American weapons. In July 2025, Ukraine turned that sentence into a program. It is literally called Test in Ukraine. Foreign companies apply, bring their systems to the one place where systems stop being theoretical, and come home with the only credential that matters. 45 applications arrived within the first weeks. A London startup, Occam Industries, tested its drone autonomy software at the front and raised €3 million on the results. A Dutch firm, Fiducial Defense, wired its AI guidance into a Ukrainian interceptor drone. Germany's Helsing sent drones to the front for trials. Denmark's Terma tested AI that detects them. Japan's Terra drone invested directly into Ukrainian interceptor makers. Each name is a small entry in the same ledger: experiment in Ukraine, product at home. Notice what quietly changed inside that list. Ukraine, in these deals, is not a recipient of aid. It is the senior partner in the experiment, the only army on Earth holding 3 years of data nobody else can generate. Aid isn't charity. It is the cheapest research program the West has ever run, and Ukrainian soldiers are paying the tuition. The lab has a waiting list now, which leaves the last entry in the journal: the man who built this laboratory without meaning to. December 2021, 2 months before the invasion, Moscow handed Washington an ultimatum: roll NATO back to its 1997 lines and recognize the post-Soviet space as Russia's yard. That was the war's stated price. Now stand in mid-2026 and read the invoice. Russian propagandists complain on air that the West now holds a working model of their entire army. Every convoy, every radar habit, every frequency, and that the algorithms are learning from it. On that one point, they are right. That is the price of aggression. Invade a country wired into Western data systems, and your own army becomes the training data set. Putin demanded that America's war machine step back to 1997. Instead, he has spent his soldiers retraining it into something that did not exist in 2022. There is a precedent, and it is worth 30 seconds. In 1940, an American engineer named Vannevar Bush convinced Roosevelt to draft civilian laboratories into the war effort. Radar, the proximity fuse, eventually the bomb, that single decision defined the next half-century of power. That door is open again. This time it opens in Kyiv. But run the experiment honestly to the end, because this laboratory keeps one control group. Every platform in this story accelerates decisions. Not one of them holds a trench. Strip away Prisma, Maven, the swarms and the contracts, and the irreplaceable instrument is still a Ukrainian soldier, standing in mud that the software will never touch. The lab runs on glass and data. The war still runs on people. So go back to where we started, your portfolio. Now you know what the receipt was for. And mark the date. By this logic, the technological end of this war, defense cheaper than attack, comes no earlier than 2028 to 2030. We will open this ledger again then. One word in the comments: what is Palantir to you now? Lab, weapon, or bubble?